We're starting on Dick's gearbox today. First thing I'm going to do is just loosen these two bolts off on the front of the gearbox, because it's easier basically to loosen them whilst it's like this. So just loosen them off, we'll come back to those. Place the gearbox on its face, and I'm going to take out this gear lever on here, which I think is already loose. That's got to come out. We've got to put this extractor on the flange to get the bolt undone, and the bolts that secure the extractor don't have to be done up tight. We'll just knit them up gently. This flange nut is done up to about 240 Newton meters, so it's going to require quite a bit of effort to get it undone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to secure the arm of the extractor in a vise. Oh, well, that wasn't as tight as it should be. It should be much tighter than that. It came undone quite easily. So then we take the extractor off again. The flange holder. And take the nut off. There's also a washer underneath there. And that came off much too easily, so they are normally very, very tight indeed. So there's obviously not enough torque applied to the centre nut on the occasion that it was done up previously. It's easier to get out if you lift the flange off. You can just push the speedo drive up and out. So there's the speedo drive, there's the flange drives the speedo drive, so those can be sat there. These bolts should be done up to a torque of about 9 Newton meters, I think it is, reassembling. having taken all the bolts out the end cap, we've now got to release the end cap, and we're going to need to apply a bit of heat to the gearbox cover, so that will make the cover expand. You can do this. Some people put the whole gearbox in an oven and warm it up. Some people use a heat gun. I'm using a blowtorch. I prefer to use this method of heating up just one end, so that I know that only the end cover will come off. If you heat the gearbox up in an oven, there's a chance that the gear train will come out with the end cover and the thing might fall apart. And what we're going to be looking for in here are some shims. What I want to try and do is keep the shims in on the same gear shafts, so that I've got some kind of reference. This is particularly important if you are taking the end cover off to do some work that doesn't involve changing bearings. For example, if you've got a broken spring on the selector or something like that, you won't have to re-shim the gearbox if you're careful about keeping the shims in the right order. Oops. So just gently heat the cover. You need to get it quite hot, about, well, I don't know what the temperature is, but certainly too hot to touch. That should be enough. Hopefully. Let's try. But be careful you don't damage the gasket surface. If you can put a lever in there. I'll just put it in there, gently lever upwards. And as I say, what you've got to be careful of is the shims as the cover comes away. That there we go. Yeah, as the cover comes away, you've got to be careful that the shims are not lost. So there, this is just that's not smoke, that's just paraffin vaporizing that's got inside the gearbox when I was washing it. So here are the three shafts, and you can see the cover here. If you look in the cover, we can see there's a shim here. There's no shims there, no shims there, but we've got a shim on there and we've got a shims on there. So what we want to do is keep the shims in the right order. So this is the input shaft, this is the counter shaft or lay shaft, call it what you like, and this is the output shaft. All of them have got shims on, so we need to be careful. So this is the input shaft hole here. So what I've done, what I keep up here is some nails knocked into this shelf, and I'm just going to put the shims, that's the intermediate shaft, sorry, the input shaft is that one. Okay, so that needs to hang on there. There are no other shims in that cover. This is the output shaft shims, so I'll hang them on that hook, and this is the intermediate shaft, which doesn't appear to have any shims on it at all. It's shimless, apart from this guard here. This is a bearing guard, alright, that sits over there, and we'll just hang that on there. That's the only shaft that has a guard over the bearing. So there we are. That's the gearbox exposed. This is the selector mechanism here, and I'm just pulling the gasket off. Sometimes you need to scrape the gasket because it sticks fast, so we'll keep that. We've got to get this selector fork mechanism out. That's retained by the 2 bolts at the other end of the cover that I started undoing before we attempted to get the cover off. So these are the 2 bolts that hold the selector mechanism in. I'm just going to give the selector mechanism a bit of support from the other end. Now these bolts are special dowel bolts. They are an interference fit in the casing, so if for any reason one of these goes missing, don't just replace it with an ordinary 8mm bolt. You can see there's the bolt. It's specially shouldered, it's a tight fit in that hole, and it's like that so that it locates precisely the selector fork cam plate. Okay, so here's the cam plate mechanism, loose now. You need to just retract that backwards and that whole assembly just lifts out. So there's the cam plate, we'll come back to that. Next, we want to take the selector forks off. So to get the selector forks out, you can pull that shaft up, okay, and then you can just extract the selector forks. I tend to put these back on the shaft so that we know the selector forks will go back on the right way round. Okay, that helps to maintain some rationale. So that can sit there. And now it's time to get the shafts out. And again, the shafts bearings need to be taken out in a similar manner. You've got to heat up the front end of the gearbox now. So heat the bearing housings up. It's this area in particular that needs to be heated because those are the bearing recesses. There are 2 ball bearings on the end of the output shaft and the counter shaft. The input shaft has a roller bearing, and that will just come out quite easily without any heating at all. There's the input shaft, there's the output shaft, there's the intermediate shaft. At the bottom of the intermediate shaft there is another bearing shield, and in the bottom of the output shaft there is an oil baffle plate, and look what we have here. Some gear teeth, Dick. There's the culprit. Okay, so broken teeth on the input shaft gear. Well, we'll give this a clean up and have a proper examination of the gearbox once I've cleaned it all up.